I'm just not clever anymore. I hear that sentence constantly from 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, students who are by any other measure extremely clever. And usually it starts about 18 months after they've entered a super selective school. I went to a grammar school and I've been on the receiving end of this. And I now watch it happen to other people's children for a living. It is the single most common thing I see, and it is almost always never about ability. So here's what's actually going on, and here are the two things that can really help. Think about how a child gets into a selective school, right? They sit a test, they pass it, then they get in. And so does everyone else. Everyone else in that room has gone through the exact same process, and that is the part that gets missed. Every single child in that classroom was the top of theirs at primary school. Every single one of them was the clever one, and most of them barely had to try because their brains meant they never needed to. Then they arrive at their really good school, and within 2 years, half of them are now below average in that room. Nothing ever went wrong for these kids. It is purely a statistical probability. If you put 30 top of the class children into one room, 29 of them are not going to be at the top anymore. Somebody always ends up having to be at the bottom in a group like that. And it is going to be someone who was brilliant at primary school. The problem is no one explains that to a 13-year-old. So they get a set of results back that used to make them the best in their class that now absolutely devastate them. Funnily enough, this actually has a name, and it has been studied properly. It's called the big fish in a little pond effect. Herbert Marsh has run this study across 26 different countries, and the finding holds up every single place he's looked. If you take two children of exactly the same ability, put one in an average school and one in a highly selective school, the one in the high achieving school will always rate their ability lower. It's not their grades. Their grades may well be better than the kid in the lower school, but it's their belief about their own grades, and that's the part that shrinks. This is all a really genuinely strange thing, I must imagine, to sit with as a parent, because you did the right thing. You sent your kid to the really good school so that they'd get good grades and do really well in life, go to great universities and get great jobs. But the good school, in this way, is actually working against them. And here is what it actually looks like at your kitchen table, because it very rarely looks like distress. It looks like a shrug, or them now saying that they don't care about a subject that they used to talk about constantly. It looks like not revising for something and then being oddly nonchalant about the mark. It looks like them going quiet when their results come out. The reason for all of this is quite a logical one. If you've always been the clever one and you've tried your absolute hardest and you're now 15th, that is unbearable. But if you don't try and you come 15th or 16th or 17th, it doesn't matter as much. You could have done better, you know you could have done better, but you didn't try, so who cares? This is the only way that you end up being able to protect yourself and keep that I am clever identity intact. So when a parent comes to me and tells me that their child has become lazy or has become disinterested in a subject, my first question is never ever about the amount of effort they're putting in, but it's when did that disinterest start? I know the instinct here might be to reassure them, and I want to be a bit careful with this because the instinct is right and it is a really good thing to want to do, but it just doesn't work. As parents, you have to tell your kid that they're clever, which to them means this isn't evidence, this isn't proof, it doesn't count. And they're looking for proof because they've just had a set of results come in, compared themselves to the rest of the class and been told the exact opposite of what you're saying to them. And there is one thing I would categorically avoid saying above anything else, and that's, but you got into a really good school. You did really well in your 11 plus. These are the exact things that stack more and more pressure and more fear on top of them. It just lands that the problem is now them. So, what does work? There is two main things, and they're evidence-based rather than reassurance-based. The first thing is to change what they're comparing themselves to. They're comparing themselves to the room, and they need to know that that room that they sat in primary school to now secondary school has changed. What didn't change is them. So get their last 3 marks in the subject that they've decided they were bad at. Not class average, not the rank against their friends, their actual grades. Then rank those grades in order of their own achievement. from the weakest mark to the highest mark. Almost always that line between their grades is going to be a flat line, or it'll probably be going up. They've never ever once really considered that, because all they're doing is sat there comparing themselves to everyone else in the class. That is the evidence that counts, and it will count to them. And you didn't make it up to be nice to them, so they actually believe it. The second main thing is to change how revision looks in your house. Most students will revise by making notes and being passive, because it is easy. And it feels pretty sometimes. Doing a nice little bit of highlighting, doing some funky little text, it feels reassuring because it feels like you're actually doing something, but you're not. What works is being asked out loud on that subject by another person. By a person who's waiting for an answer. And the bit here that matters is that if you're sat there thinking, hang on, I can't do this, I don't know anything about GCSE chemistry, it honestly doesn't matter, because they will give you a set of flashcards with the topics that they need to know on them, or potentially even literally the questions that you need to ask them, and the answers on the back. So you'll always have the answers there in front of you, so you can just be like, hang on, that's not right. You don't have to have any of your own knowledge on the subject. If they waffle or they don't know the exact answer, that's an area they now know they need to work on. This is what we call active recall, and they are having to actually think about their answers, what they're saying, exactly like they would in an exam. 10 minutes of that beats an hour of rereading their notes, writing their notes prettily every single time. And the best part is, you don't have to know anything at all. The thing I would want you to take away from this is that a child who has stopped believing that they're clever is not the same as a child who has stopped being clever. And that first one is so much more fixable. And all it takes is just someone noticing and saying, hang on, it's not laziness, there's a pattern here. If any of these things sounded like your house, tell me in the comments and I'm happy to chat about it.